What up, ninjas? I'm just wrapping up my night here at Flow Life BJJ in Colorado. Thought I would pop on here and say what up, and y'all can check out my academy here, Flow Life BJJ in Colorado. And yeah, if y'all got a question, I got about maybe 10-15 minutes here. Just kind of wrapped up my night. Teaching jiu-jitsu all night. I taught a kids class tonight, did some no-gi jiu-jitsu, and then taught some gi for about an hour and a half. What up, Brazil? Host, who else is out there tonight? Hope you guys got some training in tonight too. Yeah, we had some awesome jiu-jitsu tonight. It was a lot of fun. A little bit of everything. Yeah. I'm super stoked, gonna be releasing my next instructional, the leg strangler, looking like next week or within the next 2 weeks, but possibly next week. You guys want to definitely check that out. It's called the leg strangler. The idea with my newest instructional, the leg strangler, was all chokes using your legs, your longest, strongest tool, right? So your legs are the longest part of your body and the strongest part of your body. So I love the idea of using the legs as the ultimate weapon, which is what truly, I taught no-gi for the first time today. Awesome. BJJ Jiu-Jitsu TV. That's cool. The leg strangler, what I loved about the leg strangler is it's all chokes with the legs, right? Which is one of my favorite things about jiu-jitsu. What was one of the things that really got me stoked about it in the beginning was seeing people choke somebody with your legs. Your legs could become like arms. To me, that was the dopest thing. So with this new instruction of the leg strangler, it's all chokes with the legs. It's got tons of content. There's also a whole bunch of supporting stuff too. So if you're looking at it and you're like, I can't do that with my legs, don't worry. I did a nice video in there with all of the supporting stretches that you would need to begin mastering the chokes. So yeah, check it out, the leg strangler. It's coming out in about a week. It's gonna be pretty sick. It'll be available in DVD or, yeah, that neck crank was nasty. Awesome. It's gonna be available as a DVD or a digital download. The leg strangler, it's pretty sick. I'm pretty stoked on this instructional. Wicked High from Precision MMA. What up, Precision MMA? Hello from Colorado. I'd say sunny Colorado, but it's nighttime here. You can see it's dark outside right now. I'm just here at the end of the night. Just got done teaching jiu-jitsu all night. Taught 4 classes today. It was super fun, man. It just never ends, my excitement for jiu-jitsu, because literally every time I teach, I see something new, some other technique, some other opportunity, some other piece that I can add to my own game and to those that I'm teaching, whether it be here in my school or all of you guys online, It's why I do it. I put moves out because if I put a move online and you guys see it and you go back to your academy and you start playing with it, something's going to happen. And if enough people play with the technique, it starts to evolve and it becomes something different than, from where I started from. So yeah, it's a pretty dope thing. Hello, and thank you for making my BJJ kind of original best from Dubai. Hello, Dubai. Well, that's awesome, dude. And so that's the great thing about jiu-jitsu, is it gets to be a reflection of you, right? I was just thinking tonight at the end of the night, when you think about the belts, here, we'll go over here to our belt wall. Check it out. This is pretty cool. This is our belt wall. Pretty dope, right? So this belt here, this was my wife's blue belt. So we hung that there. This was her purple belt. Oh man, the infamous brown belt, right? So this is my brown belt. This is a belt that, it wasn't the belt that I wore for my 13 years at brown belt. I was a brown belt for 13 years. Some of you guys have heard that before. It's a long time to be a brown belt. But that's one of, I think it was 3 brown belts that I had. So that's one of 3 brown belts. The other ones wore out. That was the last one I had before I got my black belt. You can see it's an old coral belt. Love coral belts, by the way. And then here is at the top of the chain is my first black belt. So I wore this one for the first 2 years that I was a black belt, and then I retired it, and now I have a different black belt. So yeah, those are the belts. And it's interesting because like when you think about blue belt, to me, blue belt's like getting the keys to the car. Like you got the keys now. You're alone in the car for the first time. In other words, you got the submissions. You have the basics down now. And that's really what blue belt is about, is getting the framework down, getting the basics down, right? And then what's after blue belt? Bump, bump, bump. Purple belt. You know, not anybody can become a blue belt. Like getting a blue belt's a pretty big deal, but it's not like a purple belt. Once you get a purple belt, you're never allowed to quit jiu-jitsu. So do you hear that? If you're an aspiring purple belt or a purple belt, you're never allowed to quit. So you're a lifer now. And you should be, because if you've invested the time that it takes to earn a purple belt, you should definitely not be quitting jiu-jitsu anytime soon. So blue belt is the keys to the car. Purple belt is kind of like you start to develop your sense of me at purple belt. So when I think of a purple belt, I always think like I could look at that person and say, that's the triangle guy or girl, or that's the person who does this particular type of guard or whatever. So you start to develop your specialty. You hone in on your set of skill sets. That's what purple belt's about. You're developing that sense of me for the first time. So if you are a purple belt or you're aspiring to be a purple belt, that's part of being a purple belt, is developing that sense of me. What's your specialty? What are you going to be good at in jiu-jitsu? What's going to be your thing? So a good solid purple belt has their thing established, and it starts to become like a black belt technique. So even though you're a purple belt, your triangles or whatever your skill set is should be like a black belt skill set. And then brown belt. I know a lot about brown belt because I spent 13 years at brown belt. People are always like, that's crazy. Why did you spend 13 years at brown belt? Were you training the whole time? I was training the whole time, but I wasn't training in a healthy way the whole time. There was a point at brown belt where I was 60 pounds overweight. I wasn't healthy mentally or physically, and my jiu-jitsu suffered. So like I wasn't ready to be a black belt at that point. The other thing is I moved a couple times, so I had to start over at new academies a couple times. And a large part of it, most of it, was me getting in the way of myself, working against myself, and not really taking my training to the level that it needed to get to, which was, you know, I had to lose some weight. So for me at brown belt, I spent a long time there. And then in 2013, I got serious about it, and I lost 60 pounds at the very end of it. And I got myself into good shape, and I switched to a plant-based diet, which I've actually been doing now for about 12, 13 years. And I cleaned up a lot of parts of my life and took my jiu-jitsu to the next level. And so brown belt for me is about maturity. It's about being the leader. It's like being the, I don't know, it's kind of like Mufasa, right? Like if you think of like the Lion King, Mufasa's a brown belt. Simba's like a blue belt or purple belt, right? When he's young, he's kind of that wild lion, right? Brown belt's being an elder. It's about being the leader now. And then black belt's about, to me at least, black belt for me, is about giving back to the community. It's not just about me anymore. It was about me before, right? I'm chasing belts. But at black belt, you're not chasing belts anymore. So it's not about you anymore. At least that's my version of that reality. It's about giving back to the community now. And that's what I like to do. That's why I make videos. That's why I teach every day, because I love jiu-jitsu, man. It's you know, the best part of my day, man, is being on these mats and sharing it with my friends and family. So yeah, I love it, man. So yeah, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and black belt. That's your journey right there, man. And it's a long one. It's not an easy one, but it doesn't mean because it's not easy, you know, that you give up easy. Dude, you got to be up for the challenge. You got to be up for it. So yeah, anybody got any questions before I wrap up? I'm going to spend about 5 more minutes on here. And then I got to wrap my night up and go chill out with my family for the night. That's a cool image right there, isn't it? Pretty badass, right? Dude, I love it, right? I appreciate your coaching, even though we've never met. Dude, we don't have to meet, right? Like, and don't ever feel like that. Like, yeah, you're welcome to come up to my academy. You're welcome. Everybody's welcome here. Come out to Colorado anytime. But whether we meet or don't meet, we get this cool opportunity that never existed before in human history, right? Where we can communicate like this. So that's pretty gnarly. So if we never meet, that's okay, man. The vibration's for sure there. Do you get tapped by lower belts like blue or purple ever? That's a great question. Like, you know, if I'm rolling with a blue or purple belt and it's like, you know, I'm not trying to get tapped out, then I'm not going to get tapped out. Like, it's a different reality, especially from blue and a black belt. It's just two different versions of reality. Like a blue belt, just, you know, with a good black belt, it's going to be very difficult to tap out a black belt. Purple belts are dangerous, though. Purple belts, you got to watch out for. Purple belts, to me, know as much as the black belt. And if they've really honed in and developed their sense of me, they're always dangerous. But for me, it's not about like who taps out who. It's about the depth and the layers of the roll, right? If I put someone in a submission and tap them out immediately, there's not a whole lot of depth there. If I make a mistake and they slap me in a submission, there's not a lot of depth there. So the depth means that, like, if I go for, let's say, an arm bar, and then they get out of the arm bar and they get to side control, and then I hip out and get my guard back, and they begin passing my guard, and I sweep them, and then I try for a triangle from the mount, and they roll me over, and they get out of the triangle, and I try for an omoplata. You see what I'm saying? There's layers to that, right? Versus like, one thing happens and it's over, or two things happen and then it's over. So for me, the question was, do I ever get tapped up like blue belts or purple belts? It doesn't matter, right? As long as the depth and the layers were there and a whole bunch of stuff happened on the journey there, that's all that I care about. You know what I'm saying? Like, truly, that's what I care about. How do you manage injuries after 40? I'm 47. Like adductors and shoulders. I mean, the way that to roll. I actually had 2 shoulder surgeries early on in my jiu-jitsu. Like, we're talking like probably 2001 or something like that, like 18 years ago. I had one shoulder done, and then I had the other one done. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember exactly what was going on with my shoulders. I know it was some stuff with my AC joint. It's limited me over the years. Interestingly enough, I cannot frame in side control. So if someone has side control on me and I'm trying to frame and they put weight on my shoulders, it's not good for me. So I was never able to escape the way that normal people would escape from side control. I had to like start like almost like letting people be in side control and being okay there. And that helped me a lot, not just like trying to do things that were outside of the reality of my shoulders, but working with my shoulders and within the perfect constraints of my shoulders too. And not trying to work against that and, you know, risk getting even more injured, right? So working within that, as far as like recovery, you know, supplements are really good. I love the stuff that Origin puts out. Their supplements are just so high quality. Their joint supplements have been great for my joints. Their krill oil is really good. What else do I do? CBD hemp oil. I use Apex. I put them on there all the time. They make a great product. I feel like the CBD's helped a lot. Stretching consistently. Every day, stretching more than I roll most of the time. So all that stuff really starts to add up, but also just working within the perfect constraints that your body allows you to work in and not pushing yourself too far outside of that. Somebody said, yeah, that makes sense. Tonight was one of those nights I felt a step behind some lower, younger belts. Haha. Hey, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not a young guy, but I feel like a young guy. Like, I'm 50 years old, but I definitely don't feel that way. But some nights I do feel that way. And some nights, you know, it can be a lot more challenging than other nights. And so, like, on those nights, I have to monitor what my fuel tank's looking like. If I'm going to roll and I'm like, I'm on a quarter of a tank tonight, you know, I need to be mindful of how much fuel I'm going to be using when I'm rolling and how technical I need to be. So if you're rolling with the teenager and the young guys, yeah, like, if you get into a battle of athleticism and strength and speed, you're probably not going to win that when you're in your 40s. That's just the reality. So maybe sometimes you will, but not consistently, not sustainably. So, you know, the way that I roll with the young guys, especially if they move fast, it's kind of like if you were trying to catch a bunny rabbit, right? You're chasing a rabbit around your yard. If you chase a rabbit around your yard, you're going to get tired or the rabbit's going to get tired. The way to catch the rabbit is to corner the rabbit, right? So if you're rolling with a fast, athletic person, You got to corner them. You got to control them. You got to get to a position where you can land them and isolate their movements and not getting into a race with them, right? I see some, ooh, there's my boy there, Booty. I don't know how to say your username, Booty Weebo 45. He's the dude who got the Kraken choke. Awesome job, homie. In a tournament just recently in Indonesia, which is pretty awesome, right? Speaking of stretching, right? More stretching. You got to stretch. People always compliment or comment on how flexible I am, right? Like, oh, you're so flexible, dude. And almost like sometimes I think people like, oh, he's just flexible, right? Like, he's just flexible, that he was born that way, right? Yeah, I was born flexible, but I wasn't flexible my whole life. The reason I'm flexible is because, spoiler alert, I stretch all the time. Yeah, I stretch all the time. There's no reason for it, especially because I'm in an academy every day. There's no reason for me not to stretch. But if you're not in academy every day, you got to find moments to stretch throughout your day. You can't be like just not stretching. Like you have to stretch. And especially if you're an older practitioner, you know, if you're in your 40s or 50s or even 30s, you know what I mean? Stretch. If you're a younger guy or girl, stretch now so that you can develop that skill set. Because what's the advantage of stretching? You don't get hurt, right? You can do more cool shit too, right? Like you can do way cooler stuff with your body when you're flexible. Right? And what is that saying? If it doesn't bend, it's going to what? It's going to break, right? So, man, you don't want it breaking. I'm having jiu-jitsu fingers, and I feel that I'm losing my grip. Any tips on that? You got to assess what type of grips that you're using that's causing jiu-jitsu fingers. My wife got that really bad a few years ago, and she has kind of the gnarly knuckles, and she plays a lot of spider guard, so using like a hook grip on the sleeves. If you're using a hook grip all the time, you're going to jack up your fingers. And you got to think about that like long term. You want hands, right? You don't want to have jacked up, you know, hands that look like you're 90 years old and arthritic because you want to play like spider guard or something like that, or you're using that hook grip all the time. So you have to be super mindful of using those grips all the time and give your fingers a rest too. Do you like gi or no gi better? Gi, I find it harder lately. All those grips breaks. I'm usually the smaller grappler, so I feel better in no-gi. Yeah, I went through a weird stage where like at brown belt where I only wanted to ever do no-gi. And it was something that actually really held me back. And I was that guy that would show for open mats never with a gi on. I keep spitting in my mouth. But, and so like I was definitely that person who favored the no-gi. And you know why I favored no-gi? Because I was an athletic person and I could get away with a lot more shit no-gi. And then when I put the gi on, it was a lot harder for me. It was harder fighting the grips. So what I tell you is embrace that, right? Yeah, train and play around with the no-gi, but gi truly is where it's at because you're going to establish strong grips. It's a lot more technical and it's a lot harder. And it's easy to take the gi off and to transition to no-gi. I just don't, I think it's a good to have a little bit of both, but I definitely weigh in on the side of the gi for sure. A couple more minutes and I really got to go. Let's see here. What else? Any other questions? All right, my ninjas, this was pretty fun tonight. I hope everybody got something out of it. I'll save this video on here. That way it stays up on here for a little bit. I hope it helps you stay on the mats. Like seriously, stay on the mats. Like, you know, you're going to have obstacles in your life. And I had plenty in my life and continue to at times. But I use those as fuel to move forward in my life, right? When one door closes, another door opens. So, you know, stay on the mats. Don't use, you know, things that are going on in your life as an excuse to not go to jiu-jitsu, right? Use jiu-jitsu as your safe haven, as your church if you need to, as your place of getting away from everything and hitting the reset button on the calculator because jiu-jitsu is always going to be there for you. So don't punish jiu-jitsu. Don't punish yourself. Even if you got to drag your ass and your bag through the door and you're like dragging your bag through and you're like, I don't want to go to jiu-jitsu. And you get there in spite of that. And then you go through the training. What always happens? You always feel good, right? It always feels better. Yeah, jiu-jitsu therapy, right? It always fixes everything, man. Jiu-jitsu is truly, it can be the magical elixir in your life. And it's a great reset button to no matter how you walk in these doors, hopefully when you walk out, you're going to be a different person. So awesome, you guys. Keep training hard. We'll see you on the mats. Os.